Welcome to the webinar, Signicat's 12th in the series of MitID. I hope you have your coffee ready, and guess it might be needed if you stayed up late celebrating St. John's Eve last night. Should you nod off during the meeting or have to take a call, then we will record the session for you and share it with you afterwards. It will be sent out to you and also uploaded on our YouTube channel. But if you stick with us for the next 30 minutes, we'll make sure that we give you the latest and greatest updates on the MitID project. First things first, though, let me introduce you to today's speakers. On my virtual left-hand side, I have the guy who was part of the original MitID build team more than 10 years ago and is now in charge of Signicat's MitID broker role. Good morning, Lars Møller Christensen.
Good mornings.
And to my right, the man who knows everything worth knowing about MitID configurations and operations, and whom most of you already know from our customer success team. Good morning to Helge Lund Kolstad.
Good morning.
And my name is Henrik Hansen. I am part of the Signicat pre-sales team and once again have the pleasure of moderating a webinar for you, also to keep these guys on a leash so that we stay on time. Let's take a look at what we have for you for today. Lars will give you a status on the MitID pilot project and share with you whatever we have since last time from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen. Helge will provide you with some useful insights into how to best manage the switch between MitID and MitID in the transition period, where both methods are alive in parallel. He will also give you an update as to the customer migrations and how that is going at the moment before we, towards the end of the webinar, take your questions, which, as always, you can raise by clicking the Q&A button in the panel in your screens. But before we start, we are Signicat, and we build technology for people to trust each other in a digital world. It really is as simple as that. Our roots go back to 2006, and we've been represented in Denmark since 2011, and we bring all our knowledge and experience to you, not only as a trusted digital advisor, but also as a certified MitID broker. And when it comes to MitID, Lars, would you please share the status of the pilot project and relay any information you have from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen since the webinar in May, please?
Yes, thank you, Henrik, and thanks for the nice introduction. This is a webinar in the series of webinars we have hosted over the past year. So some of the webinars have a lot of news or a lot of information, and some is more limited. I will share now what we have been working on since the last webinar on in the MitID pilot in production, and the latest from the last broker forum meeting that was held last week. So take the next one. There's approximately 300 pilot end users that has been migrated, and this means that 300 persons with MitID, you can take the next one, Henrik, has been migrated via the NetBank migration flow, which is in sort of a hidden mode for only employees at the banks to test or run. And the majority has been migrated via MitID DK, which we mentioned in a webinar last time or the time before, one before, with using existing MitID to migrate to MitID. And that's, if you look into this, it's important that you don't have this red dot, which means that your CPR number is not in MitID as it should be to migrate online. So this is status on the pilot end users, and 300 is definitely not a lot. That was actually what made it before the summer freeze. The summer freeze of registering pilot end users was last Friday. So the summer freeze and the timing here results in this limited number of pilot end users. So it has had maybe a bit weak start or launch the pilot the MitID pilot, and that's how it is. And this is of course nothing that Signicat controls. This is delivery, the deliveries we get from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen and Nets as a vendor of the core MitID services. So the next one, Henrik. Together with the summer freeze, it has also been a bit complex to register, because you have to IP whitelist every pilot end user that you wanted to get. And that is it can be a bit complex to get the right ones from you as service providers. So this has been a bit administrative task to handle as well. So take the next one, Henrik. You can say this complexity and the summer freeze leads to that we will not be surprised if the pilot will be extended, so that to run longer than to August 16th, but we haven't, of course, no official information on that yet. So back to the broker forum meeting we had. This is the release 4 from the core MitID infrastructure since the last main delivery. We had 4 main deliveries during the implementation, and now this is the 4th release update, which of course have a lot of internal updates and bug fixes reported by all the brokers, the banks, and whatever we discovered during the go here. So and some functional updates have been made as well. Some of you might find that the updates to the MitID test tool could be relevant or interesting, because they have enabled for more advanced test scenarios. We have not had time to dig into this yet to show exactly what, but it's around you can set up different test identities with different attributes, the CPR number, the revoked authenticators and stuff like that. So there has been some updates that might be worth looking into if you run more advanced test scenarios. The next one, Henrik. There's also an update that you can actually now use the code display. That's one of the authenticators second to the app, or the audio reader in level of assurance mode low. And that could be relevant. We don't, of course, know exactly the flows you intend to present with MitID, but it is a potential use case that you could activate a level of assurance low MitID flow. Now you can use a code display or audio reader for that as well. So maybe also interesting to look into. And the last one here, there has also been an update to both the app itself, the MitID app, and the administrative part of the service provider setup in MitID, which means that you can actually now have a logo, service provider logo in the MitID app in the screen where the app swipe screen. You can put in a service provider logo. That's static, and it has to be uploaded manually into the service provider administrative part of the infrastructure, which we as a broker control or handle when we set up you as service provider. As I mentioned, this was release 4. We had meeting last week. There will be a release 5 coming up after summer, and that is the last one scheduled before the mass migration begins. Again, bug fixes, but also could come some last minute feature changes that we, of course, will communicate to you when we know more about that. Yeah. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for that, Lars. And from Trondheim, where I expect the sun didn't actually set last night, Helge will now give you an insight into how you best manage the switch between MitID and MitID, or what we in daily terms also refer to as fallbacks. So over to you, Helge.
Thank you. The sun did set, actually. We're not above the Arctic Circle.
No, I know you're
not that we can see the sun, but still. Yes, thank you. I'm going to show to you a feature that we think will be quite useful to many of you. During the pilot period, you are required to to hide the MitID authentication flow, or signing flow for that matter. But there will be a time when we start the user migration properly, and in that case, it could be useful to display a login option for MitID for those who are not migrated to MitID. This feature is a part of the advanced graphical profile, where we have room to display that sort of thing. And it makes it possible to fall back to MitID without breaking out of the transaction and causing disruption to the user flow. And of course, it applies both to authentication and signing. As you can see from the picture here, you can display it as a link on the on the right hand side of the screen, or if you prefer, it can be displayed in a gray box underneath the MitID window itself, or indeed on the right hand side. Can I have the next slide, please? This also works the other way around. So if you want to present MitID first, or the user regrets having falled back to MitID, then you can do the same for MitID. You display the fallback option to go to MitID instead in on the right hand side of the screen, or in the gray box on in either placement. And we believe this will be a flexible and user-friendly way to switch between the methods as users migrate. And again, this is part of the advanced graphical profile feature. Yeah. Also, a quick reminder that we have the customer community. This has nothing to do with the fallback method, but it's just a reminder that we have a customer community where we do our best to answer all questions. You can interact with other customers, and we will also post all relevant questions from these webinars on in the customer community, as along with the answers, of course. Right.
So, a status on the customer migration, Helge.
Yes. Well, it's just a short status. We have our first customers in production now. As Lars said, there aren't a great many pilot end users yet, so so the first results look promising, but we don't have any mass numbers of transactions yet. But we expect our customers to start testing in earnest in a short while, and then we'll get more thorough results. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. And we probably have the largest quantity of time ever in our webinars for questions this time, but obviously being close to the summertime and all, the news are relatively scarce here. So I can see that in the question and answer panel, some questions have actually come in, and I know that you, Lars, have the key to the mailbox. So if you open it, could you see what has been raised for addressing by the panel today?
Yes, we have a question. Can you confirm that your MitID continues to be active even after a migration till MitID? And we can confirm that. There's absolutely no intention that you cannot use your MitID for most purposes after you have gotten your MitID. Actually, it's very crucial part of the migration communication from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen that you keep your MitID, since there's no guarantee that all service providers are ready by when the migration begins. So it will still work. On the other hand, or to the next question, it's in line with this, because there's a question about that the primary retail banks in Denmark, it's correct that they have agreed to disable MitID in the netbank after you have migrated to MitID. So if you migrate to MitID, then you can only use MitID in the netbank flow, and that's a part of the whole program, MitID program, to make some incentive for users to get familiar with MitID. But it's only for the primary banks. All other service providers will still be able to offer, and you can use your MitID for all other service providers if that's is active at the service provider site. So this is correct. A question on the fallback mechanism: is this a part of the Signicat broker implementation or requirement for all brokers? This is not a requirement. It's a way or the way Signicat have chosen to make it flexible for you as service providers to switch between the two methods during the migration time. You of course feel free to handle that process yourself, using the Signicat API the way you want. But we have just with this fallback solution that Helge presented, made it part of the standard flow, so it's very easy for you to support both in the migration period. So that's how we have chosen to do it. A third question here, or fourth question: do you know when the public communication about MitID will begin? We covered that on the last webinar, that there's a comprehensive marketing campaign or communication campaign with both TV commercials and stuff like that. We still don't know exactly when it will launch. It will come in waves. Many of you have probably already seen that there has been a 2-page article or article in some of the newspapers. There's a lot of online writing, both on version 2 and Computer World. So there's increasing interest to see how far we are, or how far the program is. And I don't think they will do it right here in the middle of the summer period. So when the mass migration begins, I think that will be where the majority of the communication also will be, or maybe a bit before. I think it's a challenging task to, on the one hand, promote MitID and still making sure that you are not throwing away your key card or deleting your MitID app. So it's a difficult task to handle. There's one more question here.
There are quite a few questions, in fact.
Okay, yeah.
I can answer the ones on the technicalities of the fallback mechanism.
Yeah, please do.
All right. Using the fallback, will we need to set up the auth URL or signing order with both MitID and MitID, etc.? No, we will handle all the logic on our side, so you don't need to do that. It's related to a different question. If you choose MitID as a login method and switch to MitID through fallback function, or indeed the other way around, you can then detect from the reply that that the user used MitID or MitID. That's visible both in the authentication result and in the signature. It will display as the method that the user chose. Yeah, please go on, Lars.
Yeah, there's a question here. When will we receive info regarding the migration? Starts the 16th of August or not? We don't know yet. We can just see that the pilot has not reached a level where it really makes the benefit of the testing and stuff like that. So there is a potential risk that it will be delayed, and I guess that Digitaliseringsstyrelsen will inform as soon as they know if this is going to be delayed or not. So we just have to follow the newsletters and stuff like that, and of course, as soon as we receive information about this, we will share it with you in the different channels we have. We don't know when, if we will get, or if this delay will happen. Another question on: do you expect the release 5 contains big changes so that we should wait implementing? No, we don't expect big changes. The implementation or the release 5 is primarily between the core part of MitID and us as a broker, if any. So the majority of the changes will be to the backend or the core MitID infrastructure and not on the service provider part. We cannot guarantee, of course, but we don't we do not expect big changes to happen here. There's a last one here. I don't know, Henrik, if you will take this one. What are your main selling topic to choose Signicat as a broker?
Yeah, well, I can certainly elaborate on that, knowing that you as service providers do actually have options. But what I would highlight is for sure the fact that we've been in this business since 2006, and it is our core business to deliver trust services digitally. So with our close to 300 employees at the Signicat specializing in this, also handling a lot of EIDs across Europe. I mean, we have by far the most vast experience in handling EIDs, and for us, MitID is, you can say, in many ways just another method, but on the other hand, it is also something completely different than just infrastructure, because this is bread and butter for security, especially for you as service providers. What we believe we contribute to the MitID services that you wouldn't get from other brokers is the fact that we support the full digital life cycle. So it's not just a case of logging in with MitID or MitID for that matter. It is a case of being able to offer connected services for onboarding of users for the first time, verifying their identity, receiving them as recurring returning users, and making sure that the authentication is in place, offering the signing solutions which are very closely embedded into our authentication APIs, leveraging the services and experience and the offerings that we have. And finally, also in the life cycle for offboarding, ensuring that all data, etc., get deleted as they should be. So I think if I have to highlight just one specific thing for this, it would be that it is our core business, and we know what we do.
Thank you, Henrik. There's no more questions in the Q&A part here, so
no,
I think we can round up.
That was a great amount of questions. So thank you for everyone who addressed those. If you are still curious to know more about not only Signicat MitID services, but also many other topics related to the digital lifecycle that we can deliver, then you can find much more information on our developer pages. The links are shown on the page now. And of course, again, when we send this out to you, this is directly clickable so that you can go to the developer pages, and they are, of course, free to access. And if you still haven't found what you're looking for MitID related, then on the link shown here on top of the insert, then you can go and book a MitID migration consultation with either me or one of my colleagues, and we'll be happy to spend 15, 30, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, however long it takes to get you a good update on what it is we have to offer apart from just our basic services, meaning a lot of different add-on services, but also talk you through how we get you migrated from NemID to MitID. And of course, that consultation as well is, of course, also free. So once again, the recording of this webinar will be made available to you in a few days' time and will also be posted at the Signicat's YouTube channel. And if there is anything that you feel we have left out, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. You can see our details on the screen here, and can always revisit the previous webinars in the series from that matter. So from all of us at Signicat, and especially from the webinar team, thank you for joining us this morning, and we hope to see you again after the summer. Until then, have a great day, have a fantastic summer, and stay safe out there. Thank you for joining.